There is a region in the ancient heart of the Middle East that has witnessed prophets, empires, migrations, wars, and the rise and fall of civilizations. A land stretching across what history came to call Ash Sham. But there is something more intriguing. Long before modern borders divided this region into separate countries, Islamic revelations spoke about Ash Sham with unusual distinction. The Qur'an describes the surroundings of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa as blessed, and several Hadiths connect Ash Sham with extraordinary events surrounding the future of humanity. Why? What is it about this ancient land that gives it such a remarkable place in Islamic tradition? And when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, spoke about Ash Sham, was he simply describing a region of his own time, or pointing toward events still waiting to unfold? To understand that question, we have to go back before the modern map existed. When Muslims spoke of Ash Sham, they were not necessarily referring to the modern state of Syria. The classical geographical term was much broader, encompassing parts of the eastern Mediterranean region, including areas associated with modern Syria, Palestine, Jordan, and Lebanon. That distinction matters, because modern political borders are relatively recent, while the Islamic texts speaking about Ash Sham belong to a completely different geographical world. This was a land at the crossroads of civilizations. Caravans crossed its deserts, armies passed through its valleys, ancient cities rose beside major trade routes, and, most importantly for Islamic history, this was a region deeply connected with the stories of prophets. Jerusalem stood at its center, and beyond the walls of that sacred city was Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. The Qur'an gives us one of the clearest reasons this region holds such significance. In Surah Al-Isra, Allah describes the night journey of Prophet Muhammad. He was taken by night from Al-Masjid Al-Haram in Makkah to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, whose surroundings we have blessed. Quran. Notice the wording. The Quran does not merely mention the mosque, it also speaks of the surroundings being blessed. This verse establishes a profound Quranic connection between Al-Aqsa and the land around it. Classical Muslim scholars discuss the extent and meaning of this blessed region, and the term Ash Sham became closely associated with this wider sacred landscape. But we should be careful here. The Quran does not explicitly say in one verse, Ash Sham is the land of the day of resurrection. That specific claim comes from Hadith literature and later scholarly interpretation, and that distinction is important because Islamic tradition is strongest when we allow each source to speak for itself. The Quran tells us about a blessed region. The Sunnah then adds another layer, and that layer becomes increasingly mysterious. In one narration, Zayd ibn Thabit, Radi Allahu Anhu, reported that the Messenger of Allah praised Ash Sham. When the companions asked why, he mentioned that the angels of the Most Merciful spread their wings over it. This narration is recorded by Imam al-Tirmidhi, who graded it Hasan Garib. Think about the imagery, a landscape known to humanity through ancient cities and civilizations, is described in prophetic tradition through an entirely different dimension, not its wealth, not its armies, not its political power, but its spiritual significance. And another narration attributed to the Prophet Muhammad describes Syria as a chosen land where Allah would gather some of His chosen servants. These traditions do not mean that every person living there is automatically righteous, nor do they mean the region is physically protected from war, suffering, or tragedy. History itself proves otherwise. Rather, the texts point toward a special religious significance associated with the region. And that significance becomes even more striking when the subject turns to the future. Islamic eschatology describes a future filled with extraordinary trials. Among them is the appearance of Al-Masjid Al-Dajjal, one of the greatest trials humanity will face. And this is where Ash Sham enters the story again. In the famous narration of Sahih Muslim concerning the descent of Prophet Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, Jesus will descend at the eastern side of Damascus, at the white minaret. The same narration says that he will pursue Dajjal and eventually kill him at the gate of Lud. This is not a metaphor presented as established fact. It is part of the traditional Islamic account of the end times. And notice the geography: Damascus, the land historically associated with Ash Sham. The prophecy does not merely mention an abstract place, it places a major event in a recognizable geographical setting. But there is another question. If the region will experience such tremendous events, does Islamic tradition describe it as a place of refuge? The answer is more nuanced than many popular videos suggest. One narration attributed to Abu al-Darda radiyallahu anhu describes the gathering place of Muslims during the Great Battle as being in Al-Ghuta, near Damascus. The report is recorded by Abu Dawud, and scholars including Al-Hakim and Al-Dahabi regarded its chain as sound. Imagine the landscape, the green plain of the Ghouta surrounding ancient Damascus, a city that has existed through millennia of human history. And in prophetic tradition, this same geographical setting appears in descriptions of events connected with the great trials of the end times. But there is something we should not do. We should not take such narrations and declare that every modern conflict in Syria is automatically the fulfillment of a specific prophecy. Islamic eschatological texts are not a license for constant speculation. A prophecy is not fulfilled simply because a headline seems to resemble it. The responsible approach is to distinguish between what the Hadith actually says and what people later imagine it might mean. That distinction protects both truth and faith. There is another powerful prophetic theme. The Prophet Muhammad said that a group from his ummah would continue to remain upon the truth and would not be harmed by those who oppose them until Allah's command comes. This meaning appears in authentic narrations in Sahih Muslim. Some other narrations and scholarly discussions connect this enduring group with Ash Sham. But here again, caution matters. The strongest authentic wording establishes the existence of a victorious group. It does not give us permission to label every modern organization, army, movement, or faction as that prophetic group. The message is deeper than politics. truth does not disappear simply because the world becomes hostile to it. Faith can survive the collapse of institutions. And righteousness is not ultimately measured by who possesses the strongest army. That may be one reason Ash Sham occupies such a powerful place in Islamic imagination. It becomes a symbol of perseverance. But was Ash Sham always peaceful? No. And this is one of the most important corrections to popular interpretations. Some people hear descriptions of Ash Sham as blessed and assume this must mean the land will always be free from violence. But the Hadith literature itself does not support such a simplistic understanding. Ash Sham has experienced wars, invasions, political upheaval, persecution, and enormous human suffering throughout history. Even the narration about angels spreading their wings over Ash Sham should not be interpreted as a promise that no calamity can ever reach its people. Scholars have explained the imagery in terms of blessing, mercy, protection of faith, and spiritual distinction, rather than absolute immunity from worldly suffering. And perhaps that makes the concept even more meaningful. A blessed land does not necessarily mean an easy land. Sometimes, a place can carry extraordinary spiritual significance while simultaneously becoming a stage for extraordinary trials. Now the picture begins to come together. The Quran connects the region around Al-Aqsa with blessing. The Prophet Muhammad praised Ash Sham. Prophetic traditions associate the region with the endurance of faith. Damascus appears in descriptions concerning the descent of Isa alayhis salam. Al-Ghuta appears in a narration concerning the great battle. And other traditions describe Ash Sham as a place toward which people may turn during periods of upheaval. One narration in Sunan, Abi Dawood describes Syria as a chosen land and says that some of Allah's chosen servants would be gathered there. But perhaps the most striking point is not any single prophecy. It is the pattern. Across centuries of Islamic scholarship, Ash Sham repeatedly appears at the intersection of sacred history and eschatology. The land of prophets, the land of Al-Aqsa, the land of ancient civilizations, and according to prophetic traditions, a land that will again become significant near the end of human history. The source tradition often makes an even stronger claim that humanity's final gathering will occur in Ash Sham. There are narrations used by scholars to support a connection between Ash Sham and the gathering at the end of time. But this is an area where precision is essential. Not every famous quotation circulating online has the same level of authenticity. Some narrations about Ash Sham have strong chains, others are disputed, and some popular statements attributed to famous classical scholars are simplified versions of much more complicated discussions. So we should not build certainty on every viral quotation. What we can say with confidence is that Ash Sham has a substantial place in Islamic eschatological literature, and authentic hadiths establish several remarkable connections between the region and events near the end of time. That alone is extraordinary. But why should a believer care? Perhaps because the real purpose of prophecy is not to turn us into fortune tellers. It is to make us better prepared servants of Allah. When the Prophet Muhammad warned his ummah about Dajjal, fitna, deception, and the trials of the last days, the goal was not simply to satisfy our curiosity about future geography. The goal was faith, discernment, patience, and attachment to revelation when confusion becomes widespread. Ash Sham, therefore, should not become merely a subject of political arguments or sensational predictions. Its story should remind us of something much larger. Sacred history is not simply about places. It is about people who remained faithful to Allah in difficult places. Walk through the ancient streets of Damascus, and you are walking through layers of history. Look toward Jerusalem, and you see a city repeatedly connected with prophets and revelation. Look across the landscapes of Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, and you see a region that has witnessed some of the most consequential chapters of human civilization. Yet, Islamic revelation gives this geography another dimension. It reminds us that the earth is not merely a map. Some places carry memories. Some carry sacred associations, and some appear repeatedly in the warnings and promises transmitted through revelation. Ash Sham is one of them, but the greatest mystery is not what will happen to this land. It is what will happen to us, because the end of history is not merely a story about a battlefield, a city, or a region. It is ultimately a story about every human soul standing before its Creator. Perhaps one day, when the borders drawn by modern governments have long disappeared, the names of today's political powers will exist only in history books. But the questions of faith will remain. Who followed the truth? Who remained patient? Who recognized deception? Who stood firm when the world became confusing? And who remembered Allah when fear was everywhere? That is why the story of Ash Sham should not leave us obsessed with predictions. It should leave us more conscious of Allah. The Qur'an calls the surroundings of Al-Aqsa blessed. The Sunnah gives Ash Sham a remarkable place in the story of the Ummah, and Islamic tradition connects this ancient region with events that, according to authentic prophetic narrations, belong to the final chapters of human history. We do not know when those events will occur. We should not pretend to know, but we do know the one who knows. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson hidden in the story of Ash Sham. The future may be unknown to us, but the one who holds the future is not unknown. So when the world becomes uncertain, the believer does not need to know every date, every location, or every political event. He needs to know where he stands with Allah. And if stories like this deepen your connection with the Qur'an, authentic Sunnah, and the history of our Ummah, then stay with us for the next journey through the forgotten chapters of Islamic history. Because sometimes, the most powerful discoveries are not the things hidden beneath ancient ruins, but the truths that revelation has been asking us to see all along.